Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining me again. Today I continue exploring using ChatGPT and I will go beyond what a usual Java developer does. So beyond the language itself, but we know that beyond that, developers always do different other things, and one of the things that we do is, of course, running our applications. And today we run our applications in containers, probably in most of the cases. I don't want to say all the cases, because I know there are situations where you deploy your apps using virtual machines, for example, directly, but we most likely at least once had to deal with containers and Docker. And I'm pretty sure that if you touched Java in a professional environment, one of the things that you did is probably also you've touched Docker, you created a container, you created an image. How would ChatGPT help us as a Java developer with that as well? So let's see, I have already GPT-4 in front of me, and my plan for today is to try to run in a container an app that I have already created. Just because I don't have a lot of time, I chose to use an example that I have created myself for one of my books. It's for the second edition of Spring Security in Action, and where in chapter 16, for example, I discuss about creating a login for a simple web application to allow our users use, for example, GitHub or Google to log in. So it is a really simple application that has a web page. Here it is. And this simple web page is accessible only if you've logged in using either your Google or GitHub account via the default allows to login implementation. So I can run it just to show you how it works, and then again the purpose is, can I use ChatGPT to find out how to deploy this application in a Docker container. So today my plan is not to use ChatGPT for writing the app functionality itself, but to finding out how to deploy this application in a containerized environment. This way, if you maybe don't have a lot of experience with Docker, you'll also learn a few things, because I will explain hopefully what ChatGPT tries to do. I don't know, will we manage or not up to the end to really deploy the application? We'll see, but I'll try to figure out why it tries to do different things and try to explain them. So yeah, this is the application. It started. Here I have, if I call it, which it runs on 8080, you see it allows me select between GitHub and Google, and I can select either. Then I log in. Of course, I've been already logged in on my GitHub, so it didn't show me the GitHub login screen to fill in my credentials, because I have already logged in previously. So I was already logged in on this computer. It directly redirected me to the home page. If I wouldn't have had logged in previously, I would have seen first the login page from GitHub and then login. Anyway, what the app does is not that important, because what we are interested in is not the app's functionality today, is how to deploy it in a container. The only thing that I did was to install Docker Desktop on this computer using next finish. So I didn't choose anything custom. I just went to the Docker Desktop page. I used the downloaded executable installer. I installed it plain in the very default way, and I did that before this video, just to save, of course, time, because I think that you didn't want to like stay together and look at the installer. So that's the only thing I did. So what we can test is that there is that Docker works on this computer, that there is a version of Docker installed, and you can see that it does, because if I run docker minus version, it gives me an answer back. It means that Docker should be correctly installed. But say that I don't know anything about Docker, can I try to figure that out through ChatGPT? So that's my plan now. So I'm going to GPT-4 and I will try to ask it, hey, I'm a Java developer and I don't know how to use Docker at all. I have a Spring Boot web app running on port 8080. I want to run this application in a container. Can you give me all the steps I need for that? Let's see what GPT answers. So I want to see that. Okay, I like GPT always being polite. Absolutely, I'd be happy to guide you through the process. So it tells me to install Docker again. That's the first step that I have already done, and the only thing I had to do was to download the executable and go with next in the default way. And then it tells me it's step number 2. So once you've installed Docker, I will ask GPT, how can I check that my Docker installation is, how can I check if Docker is installed correctly on my computer, because it didn't tell me here. But then I see the second step, it tells me that I have to create a Dockerfile. So then I will follow with the second step, and let's see exactly if following all these detailed steps. I see a lot of details giving it already. Say run the Docker container 5 should be the last step, I hope, because it sounds like running the application. Okay, it stopped. Fine. And again, I want to ask, how can I check if Docker is installed on my system? Let's see. Oh, the Docker version command. Okay, so it sounds like what I previously did. So I can say, hey, it means that if this runs, it works correctly. It also tells me that if I run it from a Linux, I might need to use sudo before. It's not my case here. I have already figured that out. So we have seen it already here, docker minus version. So I can assume that based on what GPT says, it's working correctly. Then I go to step number 2 and say, create a Docker file. A Docker file is a text file that contains the instructions to build a Docker image. In the root of your project, create a new Docker file with this content. Says in the root of your project, create a Docker file with this content. So I might want to ask, what is a Docker image? In step 2, you ask me to write a Docker file to create a Docker image, but you never told me what a Docker image is. Of course, I know what a Docker image is, but I want to see what GPT answers. An analogy to a Docker image, guys, is like you create a class file from a Java file. So imagine when you write this, what it asks me is to write a Docker file. Docker file is like a Java file. You know, if you make an analogy with Java and then you compile it into an image, you create the object, which is basically the bytecode itself. And then based on the object, you create the containers, which are the instances. So if you want to make an analogy to Java and to object-oriented languages in general, I would say that a Docker file is like the blueprint itself, the class, and then the image is like the object, and then the instances are the containers. You can create as many containers as you want based on an image, same as you create as many instances as you want based on a Java class. But let's see what was the answer. So it didn't explain me. Again, very polite, apologizes, and then says lightweight, standalone, and executable software package that includes everything needed to run a piece of software. So I'm not sure what you think about this, but I think that this is the definition. A very have it to understand definition. If I wouldn't know what a Docker image is before, I wouldn't have understood what this second paragraph here is. In simple terms, okay, a Docker image is a snapshot of a Docker container at a particular time. A snapshot of a Docker container, I may or not agree with that. Again, it creates a bit of confusion for me. And again, I can understand kind of what it wants to say, but that's just because I know from before what a Docker image is. I'm not sure if I would have read that as a beginner, not knowing or very little knowing Docker, that I would have been able to understand properly from this definition. I also would be very skeptical if someone at an interview would answer me with this couple of paragraphs to the question of what a Docker image is, because it sounds very unnatural. It sounds very rigid answer, so very not like you would use as human to human when you discuss and try to explain what the Docker image is. But indeed, based on the Docker images, what we create is containers, and in containers are the real executables, the real things executing and containing our application. So we can try to build this image, whatever it defines it. Again, I tried to explain it in a little bit more elegant way to be understood, but it seems that we need to create this Dockerfile. Now, it normally, I would have expected, because I told GPT that I'm a very beginner with Docker. It tells me where I should put this. I'm happy with that. It doesn't enforce the fact that this Dockerfile has the name Dockerfile and no extension. I know it has no extension. I will start with putting it. What I'm really concerned is that it gave me something for Java 8. Wow! So I know that GPT's information is somewhere like older, but Java 8, man. So I do hate this at the moment. Using GPT, I'm very concerned when I work as a Java developer and I use GPT and I see the deprecated stuff it provides me. I'm really concerned about someone who doesn't know Java and tries to use it in production, because I'm pretty sure that if it provides me stuff like old versions, not necessarily but old versions, would potentially give me also implemented stuff with things that we don't really want to use nowadays anymore. So I'm not really happy with this Dockerfile. I will tell anyway ChatGPT that I want to use Java 17. So you gave me Dockerfile content using Java 8, but I need to use Java 17. Can you provide me the content of Dockerfile that I can use to run my Spring Boot app using Java 17? And it tells me I need to replace. Okay. Okay, so it tells me I should use OpenJDK 17, and I will simply just try to use this as it tells me. So let me see if this is working. Let me actually shut down the application before, and it told me the root. So maybe I can like go to the root here, create a new file, call it Dockerfile. Yes, no extension, and then I will grab this in my IntelliJ and copy the content. And then it tells me label maintainer. What the heck is this? Why do I need this? So I think it looks very weirdly. I can say you have an argument, the target jar file. It copies the jar file. Okay, from the target it copies the jar file and it renames it to upjar and then tries to run it as upjar. I'm not really even sure this will work as desired, but let me see. Again, remember, I'm not a knowledgeable developer. I don't know how to use Docker, so I really want to use it directly using ChatGPT. If it doesn't help me, it doesn't help me. It's not my fault. Cool. So what do I need to do further? I don't know what to do further. So let me see what was the next thing. So yeah, I created Dockerfile. Fortunately, I have realized that it uses Java 8 and I tried to tell GPT to update it to me to 17. I needed to do that because my Spring Boot application is based on Spring Boot 3, so I have no chance of running my application with Java 8. I have not even a chance running it with Java 11. So you know that Spring Boot 3 is baseline on Java 17. So using what was directly provided here was not good. But anyway, I can say that this is my fault because I didn't specify anywhere that I use either Spring Boot 3 or Java 17. So let's say that I didn't ask the answer the correct way. Then it says build your project. Before building the Docker image, ensure your project is properly built. For a Maven project, you can build a project and package using the command Maven clean package. So this really actually only tells me how to run. I will try to do that, but then I will try to ask GPT if they can help me as well with building my application. So maybe I want to have the build as well in the container, because well, in a real pipeline you would actually build your app in the container as well. No, so yeah, let's for the moment consider that it's only the running. Why not? And I'm gonna just do that manually because I'm not sure if it makes any difference. So I just want to use the clean install it suggested. I didn't do that in the console, I did it in the IntelliJ. Hopefully it will work. And normally this should create a jar file, and the jar file should be named based on the name of the project followed by the version. It would be quite a long name in this case, but I don't think it really matters what the name of the file is, because if you took a look the way the Docker file has been generated, the way GPT suggested the generation, it simply says take any jar file you find. So I'm pretty curious what will happen, because I think that there will be a couple of jar files, if I not mistaken, in the target. So I don't think that this will properly work. It may and it may not at the same time, but again, I just want to see if it works or not. Normally I would have used the proper name of the jar file here. So if you would ask me to do it my way, not ChatGPT's way, I would put there precisely the name of the file, which is also good, and I will actually figure this out, because this is also not okay from a security point of view. From my perspective, telling it, hey, just take any jar file you have there and run it, it's not something that I would like to see from a security point of view in my application. So as a junior developer using this code, even if it works, I might introduce some vulnerabilities in my pipeline, and I'm not sure this is desired. Okay, so let me see. So it finished building. I'm actually going to see what has been generated in the target. So no, the second one is .original, so it will not be taken. So functionally speaking, I think this will work. The code generated by ChatGPT will work. Again, I'm still coming back and saying my advice is don't use wildcard masks to find the executable, because Well, you don't know how a specific executable might be generated and injected and taken instead of your file there. So I prefer to be very precise with the file that I copy. And from my point of view, this is a better security way of doing it rather than using masks. Where was I? So I was actually here and trying to build my app. So I built my project. I have a jar file, and then it tells me build a Docker image. So use this command and use the name of the application here. And okay, I will call it my Spring app. Fine with me. Seems not to be able to paste, or what? Or I didn't copy it. Oh, I didn't copy it. Copy code. Okay. Fine enough. Going here. Oh, I'm not in the correct route, am I? Yeah, failed to solve it. That's my problem. So I need to actually go to the correct route first, which is actually where the Docker file has been created. So going here, and then I'm taking this again and put it here. So this command normally creates, based on my Docker file, an image with the name my Spring app. You can see that the Docker file, this dot at the end, is basically where the Docker file is searched for. So it's in the current directory. That's why I moved to the place where I created the Docker file. And this is create me an app with this tag based on the Docker file you find in the current directory. So what we expect now to happen is that it will download the base image. The base image is the one we started to customize our image from. So when you I didn't explain it properly because I simply copied it, but you start with from OpenJDK 17 JDK, meaning starting from this image that is provided on the Docker Hub, add some customizations. So this image comes with the JDK probably. That's why it's named the JDK. If you want more details about it, this image, of course, you have to go to the Docker Hub and search for it, or ask ChatGPT. I don't know, maybe it works as well. So it says, hey, from this image, add the jar file you have built, copy it, or actually copy it from the system and rename it as a jar file, and then run the java -jar command running this application and expose the port 8080, because this is the port the web application is running from, and you want to be able to call it from outside your container. Is it done already? So I'm not sure. It looks like something happened correctly. I don't see any errors, so I will just go back to what GPT says, and this is run the Docker container, and it says run Docker expose port 8080 to outside port 8080 and run the image with this name. So I'm gonna do exactly that. I'm gonna first clear the screen so we can see only the result of this new command. Okay, so I did copy it, and I see my app starting. Looks fine. So at least from a functional point of view, it really looks like my application works correctly. I will verify that this indeed works from the browser as well. I have concerns, but functionally speaking, if I were a developer, I could say that I would have at least learned what commands I need to create my container. So my first containerized application looks to be working fine. I'm gonna verify it here. So I'm gonna run it again, and I can see that indeed it's working as intended. So I can run it and I can log in the browser, and that's it. Okay, but I do have some concerns. And one of them is that I want the build itself to happen also in the container. So can you change my Dockerfile content to make the build also inside the container. Okay, so instead of having to build it myself first, when you have a pipeline, you know how it happens, or maybe you don't know, but I will tell you. So what happens is that you push the code to somewhere, which is some kind of repository. Maybe it's GitHub, maybe it's GitLab, maybe it's Bitbucket, maybe it's something else, and then you have a trigger somehow starting a specific process to run different steps, and among these steps is also running the unit integration tests, making security checks, making sonar checks, so static code analysis, but also building and then running your application in a specific environment. In some cases it even builds the environment, no, because you don't have an environment at all. So when you use a kind of a cloud, you need to create that virtual machine, or maybe you have a Kubernetes installed anywhere or any kind of orchestrator, and you have to push your application to that in a step. I don't want to do all that now because it would take me quite a large amount of time. I don't have any cloud provider now. I don't have all the setup in place, so I can't promise that I can do that in minutes, even with copying code from ChatGPT if the code is correct. But I want to at least figure out if it can help me separate the build from the run, and I can see something happen here. So the GPT seems to have finished answering, and it provided me with a new Docker file, which I will try. And it says separated. You can see I separated the build stage and the running the application. And for the build stage, I can see it uses a Maven image, which is normal because Maven is what we are using. So it figured out that we are using Maven, and we need to start from this kind of an image. So what it does here, it creates a directory inside of the image, so we can put probably our code there. It copies the POM.xml file, and then it runs whatever this is, dependency go offline. I have no idea what this is, but it runs it. It copies the source, and then it packages. Okay, so I'm really curious. I have to learn more things. One of them is, what the heck is this? So what is and why have you used it? So yeah, I probably is because it doesn't want to always connect to the repository from inside the container, but I wanna figure out if that's exactly what it tries to do there. So the Maven is a Maven command which is used to download all the dependencies needed for the project. Fine enough. This includes both the dependencies required to compile the project. The reason for doing this in a separate step is to take advantage of Docker's layers of caching. Very interesting here. So Docker uses layers and it caches these layers. So once you have once you have a layer, you don't have to recreate it every time, so it's already cached. So if you, for example, run the same command twice and you haven't changed the image, it will not download that image again because it caches it to make the things faster. And layers are immutable, so you can't change one layer. So what it tries to do here is to take the dependencies first, probably because this way it can create the immutable layer which is cached, and then reuse it without having to download again. I'm not sure if it'll however work here because it seems to be still in the package, but maybe it does indeed. And I'm not that knowledgeable, so it might be okay what it says. I want to try again to see if this is functional. So how do I do? Oh, sorry, not Postman, my fault. I'm just gonna replace everything here. I see it also, it seems to have changed my my J. See, because this is the JDK, because now Actually, why is that using here the JDK and then the slim? I don't even know. So one of the things that I don't really like in the answers of these bots, sometimes they change stuff and you don't even know why. So for example, why here it uses the slim version while in the previous answer it used the non-slim version. I don't think there is any reason. I think that's only how the AI behind the scenes worked, and in some case, based on my question, it found in its kind of archives the one answer, and then it uses another one answer. And yes, for this, I see someone saying hi from Bosnia, and I'm saying hi as well to every one of you. Very happy to be here with all of you. JRE should be enough. Yes, I do agree with you. JRE should be enough. So you see, ChatGPT works meaning it gives you working stuff. You need to have a minimum of knowledge, but you can make it work, okay? But is it the right way, exactly the right way? Is it how a professional developer, or in this case DevOps engineer or whatever they are, would create it? I bet no. I bet this is not the way a real DevOps engineer would create it. So what I still, after I have had already a couple of episodes, and we discussed about how it helped us create a Spring up with Java. Then I used Kotlin just to make myself a bit uncomfortable. Now I'm trying to see how would that be to use it in the more T-shaped area, and I'm using it now with Docker. My feeling still stays that it's a powerful tool for someone who knows already what they have to do. So it seems to be a powerful tool for senior developers already knowing some stuff, being able to change properly what ChatGPT in its answer didn't do correctly. Like, for example, as I was telling you earlier, searching using masks, not really okay. Using JDK, where it should be fine using JRE only, because we are only executing. No? Okay, this is fine. In this case, you are building the app, so JDK here is needed. And Maven, of course. But here probably it went a little bit too much with, but that's basically what the engine found behind the scenes. Okay, but see, when you build a real professional application, it doesn't work like the examples you do when you are simply studying stuff. No, when I was working on a project in faculty, it didn't really matter how I write the code, unless that was the specific purpose of that exercise. It didn't matter what versions I used. It didn't really matter. A lot of stuff didn't matter. The most important thing was that things work, that the application is running, and then the second day you would have, after you presented that project, you would have thrown it to the garbage bin. No? But with real applications, this doesn't work. You need to have another mentality as a real professional guy. No, as a professionist, you need to know that you are building applications that might need to be maintained for many years, and it doesn't work if you don't go through all the details. And that's why we, for all applications, we impose so many things like checks. We use tools like Sonar or Sneak or I know, different tools to figure out. We write tests, unit integration, and end-to-end tests. All this work is not for nothing. So you have to be very careful, because if you only rely on what ChatGPT says, you might end up putting stuff there which could imply in the end security vulnerabilities, a less maintainable application, maybe even less performant application, or in this case, for example, less performant build pipeline, and so on and so forth. Let me try to see if it works. No, so what have I done here? By the way, I would run, let me close this, okay, and clear my screen. And normally I would run Docker images to see the images that I have. Let's assume I don't know how to run Docker images and we want to ask GPT about that. So say, how can I see the images, the Docker images I created? Because I'm playing now, this is the purpose of the video, so I want to play as much as possible, see if it knows. So the answer is correct, Docker images. I don't want to see more than that. I'm gonna go back and say Docker images. Images, oh my god, no. I ate one letter at the end. Yeah, I know. Okay, fine enough. So Docker images, and we see the image that we created, and we created 13 minutes ago. Fine enough. So now theoretically I should build that again, no? So I should expect that I need to build again. Where was that? My Spring app. Now it's based on the latest content of the Dockerfile. Well, a question while this runs, not related to our subject, but I will answer it. Why most other languages developers says Java is dead or going to be dead? What's your opinion? Well, I really don't think it will be dead in many years from now on. I know that there are a lot of developers who are just, I don't know, maybe simply they try to be bad guys, but unfortunately for them, if that's what they really want, no, Java, it will not be dead for like many decades from now on. No, just look around what the JVM ecosystem is. It almost all the world's infrastructure is built on JVM, most of it Java, part of it languages that run over the JVM and transfer to the same bytecode like Kotlin or Scala. All of them are still Java. No, when you say Java, it's not only a language, it's an entire platform. It's the JVM ecosystem. Will this be dead? No, it won't be dead. Whatever Python developer says, regardless of how many followers they have, Java will not be dead. So if you want to start learning Java, it's one of the things you can do without being worried you will not have what to do with it in some years from now on. Cool. Still working, so it now downloads because there are new images. No, when I changed the Dockerfile, it also changed the base image, so it has to download it again. If I would have reused the same image, remember Docker caches it, so you don't have to re-download it again and again. But now because I changed that, it does that. So you can see what happens. So it started building the app. You can see that what this is downloading the dependencies. So this is exactly that line I asked GPT about. So it seems to be working. It reached the run maven dependency go offline -b, and now it's downloading dependencies. And then normally it should start packing the application, creating the jar, and then go to the next step where it should run the jar. So it should work. Which looks like with a couple of minor issues, I kind of was able to use GPT to build my container, to run my app in a container environment, which is good. Again, however, it doesn't seem to be something that would be 100% helpful still for someone who doesn't know. It seems to be really helpful for someone who knows already what they have to do, because you generate the code, and yeah, I like not having to writing the Dockerfile by myself. Like hell, the more I can put into there automatically, the best it is. However, you put it there and you change what you have to change, and in order to know what you have to change, you have to learn it first. So without previously learning Docker, I doubt I would have been able to like make this more than a student faculty project, you know, which again, as I said, it works with whatever you write in there, as long as it's working in most cases. For a real application, that's not the case in all the apps there. You have to be very careful with all the things that you do. So I'm kind of still happy with the result. In these past 3 episodes, I can say that I learned a lot more about how to use ChatGPT and where to use it. But I'm still curious of multiple things, and one of the next episodes, first of all, I would like to expose myself to something that I don't know at all. So now I can say in all 3 episodes I wasn't so uncomfortable. No, in the first one I wrote a Java app, Spring Java app, where I'm a total expert of that. In the second one I wrote a Spring Boot app with Kotlin. Even though I don't know Kotlin, it's still a language over the JVM, and you still read it very nicely and easily. I'm not totally uncomfortable with it. No, in this episode I'm using Docker. I can't say I'm an expert like a DevOps engineer is, but I'm not totally uncomfortable. I know how to work with Docker. I know how it works behind the scenes. I know how to create images. I know what a Dockerfile is already. So I can't say that I was totally exposed to something I don't know. In one of the next episodes, I want to be totally exposed to something I don't know. I want to write a front-end application. I have no idea how to write a front application. Never created a front app in my life. That's one of the things we will do in one of the next episodes. And one of the other things I would like to understand is how is GPT in terms of being a teacher itself, whatever it is. So it's is GPT a good idea to start studying a technology? I want to ask it to create me a lesson plan for learning a technology that I know I'm expert in teaching, like for example Java, and then I want to comment what GPT suggests, so that you guys, you know if you use it the right way or not. Okay, so what happened there? So it seems that the image was built. No, so I say Docker images. So you see my Spring App 55 seconds ago, and should be the one we expected. And then I'm just going to run it again and see if the container spins up and gets created. So in that case, you can see that the build and the app has been packed inside the container, and as you can see, it's working nicely. It started, and I see no reason why I couldn't access it. So it looks like it works fine, but with the conclusions that I have already told you. So it looks like it's a useful tool up to now. This is the end of the 3rd episode. If I put everything I learned in these 3 episodes, it's still a tool that seems to be great for someone who knows the stuff but wants to spare some time. Like, it only costs $20 per month. It's almost nothing, no? If you can increase your speed and avoid writing boring stuff and only copying it and changing what is not okay, looks very good. And if you know what to change, then it's nice. If you don't know what to change, I think it's a kind of a problem. And yeah, that's basically it. So let's see some questions. Should companies have contract about using ChatGPT or another AI? Are you essentially leaking company code? Very good question, Al. So this is basically what we try now to figure out in this experimental episodes that I'm doing live with you guys, is whether it works or not for a company, for an organization to buy a license to ChatGPT. We already know that some examples throughout the media were that the code was leaking. So from a legal point of view, I think there are a lot of discussions there whether you should or not use this. So based on my knowledge, if you have a licensed GPT, the code would not leak, but the mechanism behind the scenes would still use your code to learn, whatever that means. So I'm not pretty sure that is indeed or not means not leaking. But if I want to answer something during these episodes, is leaving aside the legal stuff. Let's say it's okay. Let's say it's fine. I can't even answer that, and things might change anyway. But the real question is, say that it's okay. Would it worth for a company to pay $20 per developer so that they have this tool? And when would that be useful? Would you pay for your senior developers or for junior developers or for all the developers? So how helpful would that be? Because if I have a junior developer in my team and they copy the code from ChatGPT the way we've seen it today, then I as a senior developer have to code review and I lose more time telling them what to change, then maybe it's not really that big deal. But in the end, it's not really that helpful. It's not a big deal what it does. But in the end, if it is helpful, like for senior developers, maybe the organization would like to actually have the tool for someone who already knows what they do, and this way they save, let's say, at least 20% of the time of their developers. Can you imagine what 20%, even 10% of the developers' time would mean? It's a huge profit that would be created, no? Because developer time is very expensive, no? So that's what I want to figure out. At the moment, I know there is a lot of fuss in whether you should or not legally use, and whether your organization's code would or not leak, and that's something I can't answer, unfortunately, and hopefully it's something that will not happen, so that organizations in the future will be able to use that. But the real question is, even if that's solved, would it be profitable? Okay, and for whom? And how you make it profitable, the most profitable? Okay. So if you can do this stuff in Dockerfile, then what is the difference with Docker Compose? So I think Docker Compose is another story, and I don't want to go into the technicality subjects because this is a topic about ChatGPT here. We can ask ChatGPT if you want, but the difference between, we have Dockers and we have orchestrators, we have Kubernetes, there are some differences. Let's take them separately as technicalities in a separate video and focus on ChatGPT only in this one. Could you talk a bit about Spring Framework 6, Spring Boot 3 and GraalVM pros and cons? Yes, but again, let's take it in a separate video because it's not the purpose of this one. The generated image appears to be quite large. Could it be optimized to take up less space? Definitely yes. I'm pretty sure it can be optimized. Already one of you guys who was I think he or she, they observed that instead of the JDK, for example, you could have used the GRE, and there are kind of other improvements I can see there. Like for example, in case of you're using Java 17, you definitely can, for example, pack your application such in a way in which it doesn't necessarily use the whole all the modules now in the JVM, so you can already reduce the footprint by only using what you need there. So yes, there are a lot of ways in which you can make it a lot minimal, and of course, depending whether you want to make it instantaneously starting or not, you can use, for example, native compilation, which will enlarge the compilation time, but then will make the executable starting in milliseconds. Again, this is kind of another story, but what you wanted to point out, I guess, is, hey, again, ChatGPT doesn't tell you exactly the perfect way of solving a solution. It's just a tool. If you, the developer, don't know some things, you will not end up with the most performant case, okay? And can you make a full fundamental course of Docker? Yes, I think that's actually an excellent idea. Thank you for the recommendation. I will put it on the list, and I will start it as soon as possible. Guys, with that being said, I think I raised also the conclusions of this third lesson. And in the next one, again, I will try to put me into even more difficulty and hopefully learn even more about how to use ChatGPT, where to use it, and as an organization, how would I use AI the way it is now to make as much profit as possible? With that being said, I'm waving goodbye, and I'm saying thank you very much again for being here with me, and hope to see you for the next sessions. Cheers, everyone.